I've just hit go live. Happy Spocktober! Yay!
Woo! I
All
couldn't
right.
help it. I love this pillow so much. I just keep showing it to everyone.
Oh, that is so cool. And if I'm not mistaken, it looks like the Gold Key comic version of Spock with the like extra 2 or 3 inches on the ears. That's awesome.
Yes. And it's double-sided.
Whoa, that's cool. That's cool.
I love this pillow. And the pillow form inside is a nice pillow form. It's not like that crap stuff that you can get at craft stores. This is quality pillow
Very
form.
nice.
And the cover unzips so that you can take it off and wash it.
That's the only way to do it. That's awesome. Yeah.
I love my Spock pillow.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, welcome everyone to the Unready room. We are here to talk about Star Trek Discovery. It's not longer Lower Decks. We're talking about Discovery now. So I'm so happy that you all could join us on this new night. We've had to move from Friday to Saturday because 7 p.m. Mountain is exactly the time that the episode apparently drops on Crave in Canada. So I don't want to compete with that. And, you know, we want to make it as accessible as we can for everybody. So
yes.
I am curious because I haven't looked this up and I haven't asked anybody yet, but I'm curious as to when it dropped on Netflix internationally. I haven't heard that yet from anybody. So if there are anybody outside of the US and Canada, or if Brandy happens to know,
I don't know.
I thought you were saying like,
no.
I know.
No, I'm listening for someone to jump in and say.
Okay. Oh, we have Wayne Fraser from Melbourne. So yeah, if let us know when it has dropped on Netflix because I'm curious. So 7 p.m. Oh, 7 p.m. Friday as well. Interesting.
Or 7 p.m. Friday in Australia is much different from 7 p.m. Friday here.
This is true. Yeah, so yeah, in Canada it's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Crave, which is bizarre. I know, I'm thinking back on it, and I know season 1 and 2 dropped on Friday on Crave, but I feel like it was just like sometime in the morning on Friday. I don't think there was a set time, but I may be misremembering. So, but yeah, it's a little frustrating for sure.
Frustrating is a very polite word for what that is.
Could be worse. It could be like Lower Decks and just still a big question mark internationally. So yeah,
that's true.
Interesting. Well, yeah, so we're here to talk about the episode That Hope Is You, part 1, interestingly enough, even though the next episode is not That Hope Is You, part 2, nor does any episode this season seem to have that title with a part 2 on it. So curious about that. But we were talking about some possibilities before we started going live here. So Brandy, what's your speculation as to the meaning behind that title with that part 1 there?
Well, I feel that it may be season 4 before we get the conclusion of that. And I think that conclusion will coincide with putting the Federation back together and getting everybody back in contact with each other. Because it is Sahil who says that. And so he's where it started. And I think that he is where we'll come back to when the task is done.
Yeah, for sure.
Or at least on its way.
Definitely. Well, and this morning, Bruce and I recorded Positively Trek. And it's funny, like we were saying before we started recording, great minds think alike, because I had that same thought that maybe the season 4 premiere will be That Hope Is You part 2. And of course, we also learned that season 4 because it's the worst kept secret in Hollywood. Season 4, they're renewed for season 4. We're getting season 4 of Discovery, and they start on production on November 2nd. So very cool for that.
To the dismay of trolls everywhere.
I drink fanboy tears. Excellent.
Yes, all of those. I have inside sources, and Kurtzman's gone rogue. I'm sorry. You cannot just suddenly decide that you're going to film a season of television without the network signing off on it. The fact that you could possibly utter those words is mind-boggling.
Oh, the delusion of some, yeah. And I mean, I don't think they really believe it. I think they're getting clicks and views. I think that's what it's about. But for the people that drink it up, 95 times wrong, but this 96th time they're good.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely believe what they say. So
yeah,
meh.
I feel like since before the series started, it's been canceled like I'm guessing we're getting close to 200-300 times. I've
It's got to
lost
be a record.
count. Yeah. That's impressive to get
Yeah.
canceled that many times and just keep coming back.
No, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed.
I know, right? I'm flabbergasted, really.
Nuts. Well, so yeah, season 4 is on the way, but season 3 we're getting right now, and of course we get our premiere episode of season 3, which starts out with a really interesting scene and an alarm clock that I kind of want. That was really cool.
I wouldn't have a bird though. No.
Yeah, maybe not a bird, but I like that idea of like your alarm clock can be whatever you want, and it's holographic /
right
replicated matter that disappears when you don't need it. I love that.
Yes, that's very cool.
So yeah, in this first scene we get our introduction to this Federation official, and played amazingly by Adil Hussein, who plays Aditya Sahil. So cool, such a really cool guy, and we'll see later in the episode, incredible actor. I thought what little he had in this episode was beautiful. I thought he did an amazing job.
I have my tissue ready for that discussion.
Yeah. There's a misting of the eyes and a lip quiver that is just perfect. Awesome. So yeah, we see his daily routine. He wakes up every day and scanning for signals and just waiting for someone to walk through that door. And then we get over into where we see Michael Burnham coming out of the wormhole, and in that little bit of a clip that we saw early, and we get the kind of context in that. She hits Book's ship and crashes. And speaking of incredible acting, Sonequa Martin Green as Michael Burnham, I've always admired. I thought she's pretty good. She's pretty good in this role. I admire her. I think she does a strong job. This episode, I'm saying here, and I've said other places, is just next level. She really, really, really knocks it out of the park in this one. Incredible performance.
I could not agree more if I tried. I have loved Michael Burnham since episode 1, and in the very first episode of Live from the Edge that we did about the first episode of Star Trek Discovery, I expressed that love in no uncertain terms, and it just keeps it's like watching her in this episode is a masterclass in acting. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this opening bit here, her elation at discovering that their mission has succeeded. There is life, just on that very basic level, their mission to stop control from wiping out all life in the galaxy. They succeeded. And then mixed with the despair at, the realization that she's left everything behind, and she's alone on this planet and can't raise Discovery. Just incredible. Absolutely. Just for a second here. Chris Littlefield wants an Ethan Peck alarm clock.
Same.
I respect that choice.
Same.
I'm curious where the time would be displayed. I'll just leave that alone.
No, I want the voice too. I want him to state that it's the alarm going off and to tell me to wake up. That's what I want.
I always think back to like the alarm clocks on Deep Space Nine, where it just always goes, the time is 0700 hours. The time is 0700 hours 5 seconds. Just like I could see Ethan Peck doing that in just like that Spock voice.
That would work for me. I don't care what he's saying, as long as he's talking. Just he can read the phone book. As far as I'm concerned, I'm good. So I will say that that Sonequa Michael jumping for joy with finding out that there are life forms. Cry point number 1. Cry point number 2 is after the wormhole is closed and the Red Angel suit has sent the 7th signal, and she mourns everything that she's lost.
Yeah. And just like roller coaster of emotions there, having to go from the high to the low, just like that. And I think she does an incredible job playing against herself, really. Like it's really good stuff for sure. I'm seeing a lot of agreement in the comments with in particular Sonequa's performance in this. So yeah, a lot of people I like the way M puts it. Sonequa brought the noise. Those who claim she's not a good actor have, well, let's go with issues. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, probably racial issues and misogynist issues.
Possibly, yeah. I think there's some of that out there for sure.
Oh, there is. There's some of that out there. There's a lot of that out there. So much out there. I get a friend amount out there.
Sorry, Aaron's comment. I'm just gonna put it out there for the beauty and the wonderfulness of the comment. Very nicely done. and we're off to the races. All right. Made my day, good sir.
Oh,
very nicely done.
I feel right now like that time when Q gave Data a laugh. That's what I feel like right now. Except I know what I'm laughing about. Oh, thank you. I needed that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So after she sends the Red Angel suit back through the wormhole to send the 7th signal to let Spock and everyone else know that they made it safely, she's now left without a Red Angel suit, without a means of transportation or anything like that, and her conduit, I guess, to her present is cut off completely, and she sets out in pursuit of the crashed ship, the ship that she hit with Book on board that has also crashed. And we very quickly get to meet the other main character in this episode, David Ajala's Book. And there's sparks between them to start off with, but it's sparks in the sense of repeatedly hitting each other. So what did you think of this kind of initial introduction to Book?
Well, I figured that was kind of how that encounter was going to go, simply because he was very much in a hurry. He was carrying something that was a sentient life form, which, though we didn't know what it was, he said, because Cosmo, who had originally stolen the whatever it was, had said, it belongs to me, and he says it belongs to itself. So to me, that means sentient life form, but I didn't know anything beyond that. So I figured he was being very protective of this cargo and that he was trying to get it somewhere, and that he would see any external interference as a threat. So he reacted pretty much like I would assume anyone would in his situation, with thinking that the attack was specifically against the ship because of what he was carrying.
Absolutely. And, the context, the world he lives in, right? I mean, I think it's kind of a minor miracle that Burnham found a good guy too. As we ultimately learn, like, how cool is it that we have a conservationist character in Star Trek now? Like, we've had chief engineers, we've had bartenders, now there's a character whose like job title is conservationist. I love it. That's so Star Trek.
He is a one-man Endangered Species Protection Act.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and his performance, David Ajala, just it's understated and just perfect. Like upon rewatch, things that I noticed about his performance, for example, when he's about to double cross Burnham, and she says, "Oh, here you go. A deal's a deal. You know, I said I would, and here you are." And his face is like, I really regret what I'm going to do right now, but I have
Mm-hmm.
no choice. You know, and just those hints of that deeper humanity of him, I thought was really great. That was really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I felt that the first time I watched the episode because I thought he doesn't want to do this, but he has to do this and he's on a time crunch. So
Hmm.
wherever this thing needs to go, it needs to get there soon. And
Yeah.
I wondered if it was like a health thing. Of course, we find out why later on. But at the time, I was just thinking, I know he thinks that what he is doing is the right thing to do, even though he's hurting someone else along the way. But you can tell, again, subtle, not over the top, not in your face, just subtle. You can tell he's regretting it. He doesn't want to have to do this, but he really has no choice.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they before we get there, I guess we should say we do meet another character in this episode,
Mm.
Grudge the cat. This
Mm-hmm.
uh, beautiful cat with a thyroid problem, apparently, and she's a queen according
She
to
is a queen.
books. So yeah, what did you think of? I think I know the answer to this, but what are your first impressions of Grudge?
Love. Nothing but
Yeah.
love. Love, 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 love. I'm a cat person.
Hmm.
So when I see a big furry cat, because I have a big furry cat, not as big as Grudge, but I do have a big furry cat, and
Hmm.
I love that cat. I want to pet that cat. I want to hold that cat. I want to feel that cat purr on my lap. I love Grudge.
Yeah. Yeah, she's pretty great. I do have to admit I'm more of a dog person than a cat person, but first and foremost, I'm an animal person. So
Yeah,
uh,
same,
very
same.
cool. She seems really neat.
Hmm.
Based on some previews we've seen between Grudge and Tilly, which I won't get into because not everyone wants us to discuss previews and are trying to remain spoiler free from those. But there's some interesting moments coming, I think. And yeah, not everyone's a cat person. That's all I'm going to say. But she
Yeah,
seems really cool.
she does. Played by a male cat, just in case anyone was wondering. It is a male cat.
Yeah.
But you can't tell under all that fur.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, so her name is Grudge because according to book, she's huge or
She's heavy
she's heavy and she's all
and
mine.
all mine.
Yeah. Love
Love
that.
that so much.
So we find out a little bit more about the universe at this time as well, or this part of the galaxy anyway. Apparently, the burn refers to at some point most of the dilithium going boom. And what exactly that means or what caused that, we're still not sure yet. But it's made dilithium very scarce and uh, dangerous because, as book says, they don't know if it's going to happen again, which would understandably make people nervous to be using dilithium. So, yeah, there's not very much around. Warp drive is limited, but there's other means of propulsion. Quantum slipstream, there's a shout out to Benamite from Voyager. But as we know from Voyager, and as kind of hinted at here, Benamite is even more rare than dilithium. So
Mm.
that probably figures into the fact that people seem to be very isolated and not a lot of interaction. And the fact that the Federation has according to book, um, collapsed, but we do see there's still remnants and that sort of thing. They just kind of faded away over the years as the problems continued to mount due to this the burn. So yeah, what do you think of this situation, this environment they've set up, this what's going on with the Federation in this part of the galaxy?
Well, I think it's setting up some very interesting circumstances to tell a story. And although I don't think the burn is the focus of the story, it is a driving force to find out why it happened, to prevent it from happening again. Because if we're going to put the Federation back together, we need to have ships that don't go boom when they go to warp. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
And you can't put spore drives in all the ships, which is why Discovery has got to keep that super secret. Because, first of all, that would A, destroy the mycelial network, and B, you're going to have a lot of genetically modified people stepping in with that tardigrade DNA, and that's not really feasible either.
Mhm.
Because there's no guarantee that that experiment would work more than once. Stamets got lucky more than anything else.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so they have to fix this problem.
Mhm.
But I think that's just a stepping stone on the way to the ultimate goal of reviving the Federation.
Yeah. Indiana Trekker brings something up here that I want to address. They say, only thing that threw me off, didn't Geordi say they could regenerate dilithium to Scotty and relics? Yes, dilithium was able to be recrystallized thanks to a technique developed by Spock in Star Trek IV The Voyage Home, actually. But this episode did mention that. Book says you happen to have a spare dilithium recrystallizer or something like that, because you knocked mine out when you hit me or something like that. Mine cracked open when you hit me. So
Yeah.
they do have the technology to recrystallize dilithium. I think the fear here is that it still could go boom if they use lots of it. So my guess is because the Orion Andorian syndicate, for lack of a better word here, the group here, they were rationing out the dilithium for doing the jobs. I think they probably keep a tight leash on dilithium recrystallization technology as well, is my guess there. So it does exist, but doesn't seem to be very reliable if you can get it knocked out by hitting 1,000-year-old women. So
do not call me Rocket Girl.
yes. Yeah, but it's an interesting setup to an interesting situation. And I think going into this season, I wouldn't say worried, but I'm like, oh, is it going to be all bleak and dark and dystopian? And in the course of this episode, we meet two true believers, as the term kind of gets bandied about here, and both of them give me a lot of hope for this world, especially the new chief of communications. Is that his new title at the end? Uh, it's just something about him just warms my heart, and I'm like, yeah, we can rebuild the Federation. There's more of this guy out here, right? Like there's more of you. So yeah, we can do this. I'm like, I the hope message of it was totally infectious for me. So
Yeah, well, Sahil is us.
mm-hmm.
He represents us.
Yeah.
And that hope, because we there isn't a real federation of planets or a real Starfleet, but the ideals are the things that attract us to Star Trek and keep us coming back for more.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we are that non-commissioned officer waiting for that chance to have this joy again of being part of something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. And another thing, I think, on the flip side of that as well, I think we're also the people he's talking to. Like he's talking to Burnham, and he's been waiting for someone to come through that door, and that hope is you. I think ultimately the big message, and I was kind of waiting to the end to talk about all this stuff, but I'm just like, I love this
It's
stuff.
just right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Star Trek always has a message that it's telling people, and it's telling us right now, I think, that even in the darkest of times, it's up to us, it's up to people to be that force that changes things for the better. So, when he's saying to Burnham, that hope is you, like as an audience member, I'm like, I'm ready to grab the Federation charter and stand up and grab the flag and man the barricades and all all this stuff that all these pieces of media have been telling us for centuries now, I guess. But yeah, it got me. Like this message got me. Like I hook, line, and sinker. I'm right there with it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm an idealist. I don't know.
It's okay to be an idealist. I'm an idealist as well.
Maybe I was waiting for something to rekindle my idealism, because sometimes it's fleeting. So
there has been a lot going on in the world that will just beat you down. Just it's relentless. It's been very relentless.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
A lot of things, yes, things.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because all of this was written and filmed, of course, before COVID.
Yeah.
But even before COVID, there was a lot happening that informed the writing of this, I think, as well. So, yeah. This is a great question, because I am also wondering who's on those 2 Federation ships that are apparently in the 600 light year radius. I'm wondering if we'll visit some of them. I'm looking forward to that, but that's probably for another episode. I won't put Brandy on the spot about that. So
I can say nothing. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Excellent. Well, yeah. So we get to the Mercantile here. In the middle of Iceland. I mean, Heme.
It is Iceland, and Iceland is beautiful.
It absolutely
strange. And, there's a reason why a lot of sci-fi stuff gets filmed there.
Absolutely. So. I've only been to Iceland twice, but I'm pretty sure I've been to a couple of the places that they filmed at. The one part I'm like, is that the Blue Lagoon? If not, it's around that area anyway, where way later in the episode they appear underwater and come up above water. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's the Blue Lagoon. But yeah, it's gorgeous. Otherworldly. Like if anybody out there, if you have visited or get the chance to visit, taking the bus from the airport, you'll look out the window and swear it's the moon. You're like, what is going on? It's wild.
I've never been off the continent, so I couldn't say.
It's worth the trip. It's such an amazing place, and yeah, great place. Anyway, I'm like, I've been locked in one place for so long. I'm like, I just want to go anywhere. But yeah, anyway. I've seen a few people asking also about Romulan singularity drives and wondering if they're exempt from the dilithium burn thing. And knowing who's on the writing staff, I can't imagine that they've forgotten that. I can't imagine that that's something that doesn't get addressed at some point. So.
Oh, it will. It will.
Okay.
Right. I'm not saying that as I've seen it. I'm just saying I know these guys. They don't do anything by accident. So.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Daniel's Hot Topics. So excited. Star Trek Discovery Season 4 has been announced and will start filming in November 2nd. So nice to be with people who love disco. It's nice to be here with you too. You are someone who comments on my videos a lot. So I just want to give a special shout out to you. Thanks for being a viewer and contributing your thoughts. I really do appreciate that. So we all love people who love disco too. So thanks.
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, the Mercantile, this whole sequence is incredible. First of all, legacy Star Trek species. We get the Andorians and the Orions. And this is where that double cross comes into play. And Michael Burnham, I keep wanting to say Sonequa. I don't know why, but Michael Burnham gets directed to go into the vault instead of the subspace comm area that she was going to, and gets immobilized, and Book steals the rest of her stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that was a tough scene. And she said, "Oh, I'm gonna hunt you down."
And he's kind of just like, join the club.
Yeah, he's kind of used to it. Yeah. Good person has to do bad things sometimes, apparently.
When you're trying to save a life, yeah, sometimes you do.
Absolutely.
Doing the right thing isn't always doing the lawful thing.
Nope, that's true. Yeah, for sure. So we got to talk about this scene because the scene where Michael Burnham gets drugged by the Orion and the Andorian into this kind of truth serum drug where they're not sure about the dosage, but she's kind of forced to spill her guts about everything. And we have Brandy back. Yay. Okay.
I'm back.
I just kept talking through it all because I was like, I think she's frozen, but
I'll be back. I'll be back. I'm here. Yeah, so she was hit with that stuff that has an integrated consciousness. What is that? What is that?
And she's what is it? She's reflexively supportive. And
yes, I am so supportive. Reflexively supportive.
Damn.
I love that. It's just like, I love how they're like, this is taking too long. Do you want to go get a sandwich? And they turn and start walking away. And then she starts laughing, and then she raises her head and goes, damn. And I'm just like, oh, we're in for it. Yeah. Buckle up, then, guys.
Then falls asleep for 5 seconds, and that's, oh man, that whole scene was incredible. Her little reference to Tilly as well. I have a redheaded friend. You cannot give her this. It was great.
Yeah, the way it was filmed too.
This is what I was gonna say.
Yes, see,
yeah. Great minds think alike, and fools seldom differ. But yeah, the way it was filmed with the camera tracking her head movements and stuff and going, that was beautiful and really, really well done. Olatunde Osunsanmi was the director for this, and I notice he likes to do really crazy camera stuff. Sometimes in the past for no discernible reason, which bugs me at times, but this time I think like that particular movement was just perfect for the scene, for the disorientation and the weirdness that she's experiencing. Indiana Trekker has a good point. Would Tilly really be all that different on the Truth Gas? It's a good point.
No,
it's a good point.
No, she would just she would have no guile, but she rarely has guile anyway. So yeah. I do love that part when she's like, I'm dying to talk about it. I'm dying to talk about it.
So good. Yeah, what was so we have left everything that I've ever known or loved behind me for the sake of creation, right? If you think about it, let's be honest. I saved all the things.
The things.
And then I shot out of a wormhole and hit a guy. I love her. That scene must have been so much fun. Fun or challenging? I don't know.
Probably both.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So she gives him the information about Book, and they go to confront him. But meanwhile, he's gotten into a situation with Cosmo, and whole thing erupts. They exchange a look and fight off the guys and beam away. And then we get probably my least favorite part of the episode. Again, not like a huge problem with it, but like the beaming away and appearing and shooting and beaming away and appearing and shooting felt a little bit generic sci-fi to me. It was just like a bunch of people shooting at things and missing for the most part. And I'm like, wasn't the most engaging part of the episode for me, but I did enjoy the characterizations we got throughout it, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, when you're being chased and you have personal transporters, that does create a different kind of pursuit. The trick is, of course, that it takes 30 seconds to recharge, which is why they kept hopping about and why they kept, the way that I feel about the weapons is that I feel like they were really meant to be more close range. And so they're less accurate the further away you are from your target, which would explain why they can't shoot for crap when they're running and their target is running. So that's just my personal headcanon, or as I now apparently have to call it, hand cannon. Thanks, Bruce.
Oh, Bruce told you about that, did he?
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Excellent. Yeah, I forgot you guys did the live show with him earlier today on Outpost
Indeed.
13. Yeah.
Yes.
How'd that go?
It went really well. It always goes well. We
Excellent.
always have a great time, and this was no
Oh,
exception. It was
that's
great to have
awesome. I
Bruce
wasn't
on.
able to. Yeah, yeah, he's great for sure. I wasn't able to watch it live this time, unfortunately.
I
But
know. It's okay. It'll be out as a
yeah,
podcast on Tuesday-ish
excellent.
on Trek Geeks.
Uh, yes, put in the plug. Absolutely, no, for sure. um, so yeah, they eventually shake them off for a little while by appearing underwater, which apparently they can't track if they're inside more matter that's more solid than air, I guess, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. So, but luckily they did water instead of, inside the cliff face kind of thing. So
Yeah, that would
that's
have been
good.
bad.
Yeah, not so good there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so at this point they get a little bit of a breather and we learn a little bit more about Book and this kind of interesting connection he has to nature. It's not just the animals Grudge that we see and the animal that we see later, but with plants as well. So that's really interesting. What did you think of that?
I actually really enjoyed it. Oh, I'm sorry. I got distracted because that was the scene where David Ajala was shirtless.
Yeah, figured that.
Sorry. Anyway, I really like that because it's this tie to organic life. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not very common. I mean, even to that century, it's not a common thing. And
Mm-hmm.
the language was interesting. It sounded like this strange combination between ancient Egyptian and like Yiddish or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed listening to him. I enjoy him doing anything, let's be honest. Um, but it was just not something I expected. It just was one of those things where I'm just like, well, this is new.
Mm-hmm.
Where's this guy from? I want to know more.
Yeah. Well, I had an interesting thought while Bruce and I were recording Positively Trek as well. And this is the furthest forward we've seen in Star Trek future history.
Mhm.
And it's after the time cops in Voyager in the 29th century. And it's after it's my shorthand for the relativity people. And it's after Daniel's temporal agents in Enterprise. That's the 30th or 31st century. We're in the 32nd century. And one of the things I remember from Enterprise is somebody asking Daniels, like, are you human? I think it was Trip asking him, like, are you human? And he's like, more or less. So by this time, those lines have become a little blurred, which is interesting, at least in the case of Daniels and presumably in the case with other people. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering what particular um, lineage, I guess, makes up Book and maybe other humans that we encounter. The definition of human seems to be a lot more fluid, at least what we see in Enterprise. So, I think it opens up the possibility for a lot of different kinds of people with different abilities and different connections and stuff. And I think that's really interesting. So, I
Yeah.
like that idea of um, human being a kind of more fluid concept than what we're used to. Maybe it's regressed a little bit because people have been cut off and that kind of thing. But for the most part, it seems like things have become a bit more of a interstellar melange, let's say, than
And
than we've
Melange.
seen in the past.
Yeah, I like that.
Hmm.
That sounds right to me. I like that.
Yeah, I think there's you know it's so far along that like who knows where things have drifted as far as intermarrying and all that stuff. So it could be really
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, just because he looks human doesn't mean he is human.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So, but I I'm all just thinking about all the possibilities and my brain is going to explode. So I'm going to leave that alone for a minute.
I'm assuming we'll learn more. And
Oh,
and
I'm
even
sure we
if we
will.
And even if we don't like learn specifically, I kind of almost like that ambiguity as to what this is, because in a lot of ways Burnham is the audience surrogate here, and we're seeing things through her eyes, and we're learning about this new world as she does, and later on as the rest of the Discovery crew does, I'm assuming. So I really like that it's not all just explained and handed to us. It's kind of we're experiencing the wonder of it as we go.
Yes. And I like that. I don't need everything handed to me, and I don't need every mystery solved. So, because sometimes that's just life. Sometimes you don't ever find out what happened or why.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's not. Just depends on the situation. But it's very real life sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll see.
I assume we'll find out more about the burn, but
we absolutely will.
Yeah,
that I'm confident of. And I'm not saying that because I've seen other episodes. I'm not saying that at all.
I understand. I get it. No, for sure. Yeah, so they're coming back to the ship that's been, we would say, cloaked in the 23rd or 24th century. Who knows what it actually is? Maybe it's even gone to a different dimension momentarily or something. Who knows what this technology is?
No, I'm pretty sure it's a cloak because they fire into the air and it hits the ship.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's a cloak.
Yeah, okay. Should have phasing cloak by then. Anyway. But yeah, they get there and get confronted. The gangsters catch up with them again, who we haven't really talked a lot about, but it was really cool to see Illurian in there, Morn's people, and a Cardassian, very fleetingly for a moment. You see a Cardassian there. That was pretty cool.
And a Tellarite.
Tellarite, yep, there's a Tellarite there. And of course the crime bosses, we have the Orion and the Andorian guy there as well.
They have names, and I'm not sure how to pronounce them.
They do. I saw in the credits, and I can't
want
remember.
To call them Ithik and Ithor.
Yes. I'm just Brandon McGibbon as Ithic or Ithik, and Jake Michaels as Ithor or Ithor.
I'm pretty sure it's Ithic and Ithor, but it could be Ithik and Ithor, which sounds like I have a lisp. I thick and I Thor.
I thick
I
and
Thor
I
because
Thor.
I'm thick. I thick because I Thor. And I
Something
Thor
like
because
that, yeah.
I'm thick. Yeah, so yeah. I do it the funny way because it's funny. It's probably Ithic and Ithor, but who knows for sure.
Yeah. No, I like that. But yeah, they catch up with them, and we find out that Book's cargo is not ice cream, as Michael Burnham had speculated, but turns out to be a trance worm, which is interesting. And because Book tells Burnham to close her eyes, they keep their eyes closed, and everyone else is kind of put in this trance and swiftly devoured by, well, a couple of them are devoured and the remaining 3 beam away really fast. That was interesting.
Yeah, got to see some dismemberment of an Andorian.
Yeah.
I found it amusing that there was a bit of blue blood splatter on the camera lens.
Yes, that was interesting. Yeah. TJ says, first Cardassian we've seen since DS9 ended. It has been a while. I will say, just a little tiny trivia thing that I love. There was a Cardassian body on the Dead Stop station in season 2 of Enterprise. Just as a little background thing. So if you've never seen that, go look. It's subtle, but it's there. So
one of my favorite episodes of Enterprise.
Great episode, superbly directed by Roxanne Dawson. I can't remember who wrote it off the top of my head. Chris Chabon, maybe? I can't remember, but
it's possible.
Yeah, but great direction by Roxanne Dawson, and nice little guest stint as the computer voice for the station in that one as well. So Dead Stop.
Love it.
Excellent episode.
Yes.
Yeah, so that problem is dealt with, but the transworm decides to snack on Burnham.
Her name is Molly.
Oh, I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, her name is Molly. book calls her Molly.
Oh, excellent. I missed that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Molly decides to snack on Burnham. It's an odd sentence, but thanks to Book's connection with her, is able to, before she chomps down, I guess, is able to convince her to spit her back up. And thankfully, Burnham is, I think at this point, still a little bit loopy from the drugs and reacts in a much more calm way than I think I would have when she said, I wasn't sure how this day was going to go.
Well, after all the other stuff that she's been through, this seems not that bad. You know, she's alive. She's covered in goo. But she's alive.
David, I had the exact same thought. This totally reminded me of the spider cow scene.
We all got that. All of us thought that.
I was kind of waiting for Book to yell something like, "Don't shoot her, you'll spoil the milk." Good stuff.
Oh, apparently they're served raw. Why would you? That's just gross. That's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll put that one aside for now. We'll stick a pin in that one. Yeah, so they set off, and they have the dilithium, so they set off now to this refuge planet, and get there just in time to make it for the end of their mating cycle. So yeah, this is where we learn he's a conservationist, and basically, because there's no federation anymore to enforce things like the Endangered Species Act, he does what he can to protect wildlife and that sort of thing, which I like I said earlier, I think is just one of the coolest, most Star Trek-y things ever.
Mm-hmm. And that he's an aberration in his family, because they're all butchers and killers, but every once in a while, someone like him comes along.
Mm-hmm. Suzanne, thank you. Sanctuary 4. I was like, I know refuge wasn't the right word. It was another similar word. Sanctuary 4 is apparently the planet, or the place on the planet that they're headed to. So that was pretty cool. And then, yeah, so Burnham, of course, learns, he's one of the good guys, and I'm going to stick with him. And because, I can't contact my ship, I don't know what to do now. But Book says, I know someone who might help. And then we get the episode coming full circle. We get back to our gentleman from the beginning of the episode. They go to this Federation waypoint where this guy's been waiting for over 40 years, I think he said, for someone to come through that door. And Burnham walks through and says, Michael Burnham, Commander Michael Burnham, science officer, USS Discovery, and her serial number. And this guy is just like, what? and to me, just this whole scene is so beautiful from start to finish. I'm just, Adil Hussein gives such an incredible performance here. Just the one little, like, when Burnham gives him a commission as a Starfleet officer, his eyes just well up and just a little lip quiver. It's just such a beautiful performance. I absolutely love this guy, and I hope we see lots more of him in episodes to come, because I want to see more of him. I'm sorry, Brandy. I see
I'm having a moment. Yeah. Basically, okay, so when they're still on Sanctuary 4, Book asks Michael what she left behind, and she said, I think it says, how much did you leave behind? And she says 930 years. And he says, why? And she says, to ensure a future. And he says, thank you.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you. And I was crying from that point on until the credits.
Oh, wow.
But the crying got progressively uglier as it went on, because reasons.
Yeah, it's so incredible. And so this guy's story too, his father was a Starfleet officer, and his father's father was a Starfleet officer. He was never commissioned as an officer because there was no one there to do it. He's been all alone. and hasn't raised the Federation flag because only an officer in Starfleet can do that there, and that whole thing where you know um, I think he doesn't ask Burnham to commission him as an officer. He just says we need a commissioned officer to raise the flag, and is saying like, you need to do that. Could you do me that honor of doing that? But she commissions him as an officer, as a commander in Starfleet. She's able to do that, and it's just so beautiful. And he was not expecting that, and it was just gorgeous. It was really, really good.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where she was headed, but I kind of had a feeling. And she says, we need an acting communications chief, and then she says, "Will you accept the commission?" And that's when I really started really just sobbing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was getting choked up there for sure as well. And Mossy chimes in, even I choked up, and I'm a cranky old git. Well, it's strong emotions like that, no age and no gender or anything like that. It's good stuff.
And it's absolutely expected with me. So
yeah. One thing I've noticed about myself is throughout this whole ordeal over the last year and stuff, I'm noticing the psychological thing that it's been doing to me too, because I'm so much closer to that on a regular basis than I ever was before. And I'll just freely admit that to everyone who's watching here. There's Star Trek episodes that I've watched 100 times, and I can tell you there were exactly 2 Star Trek episodes that have made me cry every time I watch them throughout my entire life, both in season 4 of Deep Space Nine, oddly enough. The Visitor, the second episode in season 4, I'm a mess every time I watch that episode, and I've watched it probably 20 or 30 times. And also in season 4, Hard Time, when O'Brien serves that prison sentence in his mind, and the exact moment that does it is when he's just about to hit Molly and realizes what he's about to do, and his wife and daughter are looking at him with those eyes, and he leaves, and then anyway, the rest of the episode, I can't even. But going back now and watching episodes that I've watched dozens of times in my life, there's so many more things that bring me to that level now, and I'm just like, my emotions are so much closer to the surface now. I don't know why I'm opening up to all of you, but thank you for being my therapist. But like, even was it I'm a total stream of consciousness here now, I apologize, but the season 6 Voyager episode, Barge of the Dead, the climax of that episode, when they're on the Barge of the Dead and B'Elanna's holding the Batleth to everyone, and she says, "What do you want from me? You want me to be the perfect officer?" And like strikes towards Janeway, the perfect lover, and strikes towards Paris, and like these expectations that have been put on her. And I was just like, I started like tearing up. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? So yeah, they're that much closer to the surface these days. I don't know what the point of all of that was, but
well, let me explain something. It's okay to show emotion, no matter what gender identity you have, and
absolutely.
B, it's also okay to not be okay.
Yeah,
stoicism can go suck an egg, frankly, because expressing emotions is something that should be natural for humans. We have very strong emotions. And I mean, granted, there's still about 10% of the population that doesn't feel that way, but they're the psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists. That's not a joke. That is actually true. And
I'm not laughing.
and then there's the 10% like me that just every emotion that I have, the ultimate expression of, is crying, because that's just what I do. And then there's the other 80% that's, somewhere in between. But I just feel like no one should ever feel ashamed of showing emotion or be upset that they're showing emotion. And life experiences change how we view things. My viewing of certain episodes of Trek, which I'm doing a lot of course, because of other podcasts, even just within a couple of years, my views and the way that I feel about the episode has changed because of the life experiences that I've had in that interim. So it's not like there's anything wrong with you, or not like you're losing your grip on your emotions. You are just relating in a more intense way because of things that you've been through and things that you identify with.
Yeah. And it's funny how those experiences, we've gotten quite a bit away from the Discovery episode, but that's okay. I'm loving this conversation.
It's okay.
Like The Visitor, when I watched it as a kid
Mhm.
and I bawled, I was watching it from the perspective of Jake losing his
Mhm.
dad and then sacrificing everything he could for his father. And I'm like, yeah. And then now as an adult, I don't have children, but I'm still closer, I think, to the mindset of Ben in that episode, and seeing this child grow up before his eyes and then sacrificing himself for the father. Like, I just, seeing it from that perspective just adds a whole nother layer to it that really gets me. And yeah.
Yeah, we actually, a few episodes back on the Vedic Assembly, plug, which you can find on Holosuite Media, plug, Liam and Nick and I were talking about fathers. It was Father's Day in Australia very soon. And we were talking about fathers. And of course, we had to talk about the Cisco family and the positive representation of Black fathers and Black families, etc., which is just not something that was done in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we had to talk about The Visitor, and we were all just bawling while we were doing that. I of
Yeah.
course, was the most loud, but all of us were just a wreck just talking
Yeah,
about that episode.
absolutely. And I think to bring it back to Discovery, the fact that this episode can elicit those same emotions, and you know, how do I put this? Okay, I've never watched Andromeda, but I've heard the comparisons of the setup for this third season of Discovery, having a lot of parallels to the story of Andromeda. And as far as I know, it involves a ship from the past coming to the far future, in which time the government, the Commonwealth, as it's called here, has collapsed and they have to kind of bring it back. Um, I've heard good things about the show from people who like it, but one of the criticisms I've heard is that you don't really relate to the Commonwealth because you never really saw it in action. You just see it through the experiences of this one ship.
Yeah.
In this case, we have 54 years of Star Trek history of having seen the Federation and what it stands for and those ideals that made it what it was, and knowing that that's what's on the line. That's what's been marginalized at this time, and that's what they're on a mission to bring back. I think it does a great job of marshaling those emotions, all of those emotions you've invested in this thing that called Star Trek that you've loved for all of these years, and using that to kind of show you what the stakes are here and what has been lost and what can be regained. And I think like it does it does really tug at those heartstrings, and really in a genuine way, though, not in a cheap way. Like, I think it
No.
does it in a really genuine, meaningful way. And yeah, I really, I don't know. I'm here for where this season goes, because I can't wait to see how this all plays out. And there's going to be bumps. It's not going to be like, okay, Burnham and this guy are going to bring it all back and it's going to be amazing. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hurdles over the next 12 episodes, but that journey is going to be amazing. I'm really excited for it.
I am too. I will say this, and this is not a spoiler in any way for the other 3 episodes that I have seen, but we are following the pattern of Discovery Season 2, because every single one of these episodes has made me cry at some point. So, pretty sure that pattern is just gonna continue through the season. And I've got plenty of tissues, so bring it.
Awesome. I awesome. I say no. It's
It is awesome.
I'm convinced, like in the writers' room of Discovery, like Alex Kurtzman or an assistant Alex Kurtzman is watching right now, and they have like a Brandy Jocula written there with a line under it, and they just made a little hash mark. They're like, okay, we're 1 for 1.
Uh-huh. Well, this one had several cry points. That's what I call them now. It's Brandy's cry points. It's like
Mhm.
when did I cry during this episode? And I can count at least 4 times that this episode made me cry. So
Wow. Yeah, well, I'm really curious to see where it all goes. I have a hard time, rating the episodes, each episode in a season of Discovery, because as we all know, they're kind of chapters in a 13 chapter long book, right? So it's kind of hard to say where we're at here, but I mean, I'm obviously a 10 out of 10 on this episode. I loved the story. I loved the cinematography. I loved the performances were incredible. So yeah, Brandy, how about you now that you're back?
Yeah, I love this episode. I don't think that that's in question at this point, how I feel about this episode. It was everything I could have wanted had I had any expectations. I had expectation that I would enjoy it. That was the only thing that I was counting on, and I was not disappointed in that front. I feel about this episode the way that book feels about Grudge.
Wow, very strong feelings.
Mhm,
Absolutely. Um,
mhm,
I think, and it's not out yet. Our episode of Positively Trek where I talked about this, I think I gave my rating as the exuberance felt by a trance worm after it makes it back home in time for mating season. It was just
mhm.
so
Excellent.
happy, and yeah, absolutely. A few ratings from the comments we've got here as well. So Automated Joy says 10 cats with thyroid disorders out of 10. Excellent
Right?
rating, absolutely.
Mhm.
10 out of 10 Burnham regurgitations from Mossy G. Now, there are multiple Burnham regurgitations because at the beginning she regurgitates,
Yes, she does.
and
He
then
has
at
a
the
little
end,
puke,
yep, a little puke.
a little bit of a
Uh,
puke.
and at the end, she herself is regurgitated. So,
Mhm.
really coming full circle there with the themes and the. I'm
Yes.
just kidding. I don't. um, Donnie Pearson says 10 out of 10 Delta Shields for That Hope Is You. We also do get, the name of the badge, Delta Shield. That's the first time that's said in Star Trek. So that's kind of cool.
Mhm.
Um, Chris Littlefield, 6 out of 6 David Ajala abdominal muscles. Yep.
He
Yep.
does have a six-pack. Yes, he does.
We have 5 1,000-year-old women colliding with Book's ship. That's a very good rating there. Absolutely. TJ
Mhm.
says 4 out of 5 dilithium fragments. So all very high ratings so far. Suzanne, 10 out of 10 dilithium crystals stolen while drugged up. Yep. Well under fire too. So it's pretty
Mhm.
impressive.
Yep.
Patrick says 5 out of 5 slow as crap solar sails. So yeah, that's pretty good too. I think. Is that a good rating?
Yes, it
Hmm.
is. It is.
Okay.
It's 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. Very slow. Yeah, okay. Wayne Frazier says 9 out of 10. 10 if they stick the landing. So, a contingent rating there based on what comes after. Fair enough. Indiana Trekker, 8 out of 10. 10 out of 10 nuggets of dilithium. Excellent. Yeah, very good. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, 7.5 out of 10 quick charging personal transporters. I deducted 0.5 because we haven't seen Discovery Crew yet. Yeah, so that's true. We don't see the Discovery Crew in this episode. I personally count that as a plus in this episode, and it's not that I don't want to see them.
Mhm.
Nothing could be further from the truth. You have to give me Saru. I want my Saru. But I think it's interesting that, like Burnham, we're kind of set adrift and we don't know exactly what's happened. I like that there's that parallel between the audience, what they're going through, and what Burnham's going through. I actually really like that.
Yeah, I frankly, okay, I love this show. It's my favorite Trek. I've made no secret of either of those things. But I didn't miss the crew. I wasn't watching this episode thinking, oh, just get to everybody else. That never once entered my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even enter into my sphere at all. Wasn't cognizant of it. It was just more that I wanted to see how this went. And of course, at the end of the episode, Sahil's even saying, so by the law of temporal mechanics, they could show up tomorrow or in 1,000 years, they figure that out. So it didn't bother me that the rest of the crew wasn't there, because I honestly had a feeling that probably was going to be the situation. Wormholes will mess you up, man. They will mess you up. And just because you came out of the wormhole doesn't mean the thing that behind you came out at the same time. Literally.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
for sure.
It didn't bother me. It was disorienting for Michael, and we were disoriented with her, and I think it did a great job of portraying all of the feelings of what she was feeling and making those communicable to us. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay, good.
But yeah, we've got Stefan says 10 out of 10 time leaps. Dale Sexton, 8 out of 10. Will you accept the commissions? Tear jerky one there. Absolutely. Am I missing any? Oh, M says 5 out of 5. Alarm fire. This episode was I can't speak Spanish. I'm sorry.
It's En Fuego.
En Fuego. Okay. I am stoked for this season. Yeah. In Canada, we're all about the French. So if it was French, I'd be like, oh, but yeah. So we don't have
I know enough Spanish to know how to pronounce the words. So it's En Fuego.
Perfect. Arvind, 9.5 out of 10. I felt the scene where they stole the dilithium crystals could have been improvised more. It was just sitting over there, just like some vegetables in a market. They're supposed to be very costly. She saw her opportunity and she took it. That's what heroes do.
Yeah, well, see, most of the time, those stations would have been manned. But now they're in a firefight, and all of the guards are at one side, and they're at the side where the guards really want to be. And so, of course, that's unattended. Everyone's bugging out or firing on them. So,
absolutely. Well, I think we've come around to where people are giving their second ratings now. So I think we can probably say this episode has been discussed to the hilt, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to next week's episode, of course. Far From Home is episode 2. So I have a feeling we'll see Discovery in this one, but I don't know. So I haven't seen it, and I'm not asking Brandy. Don't worry. Don't give any spoilers. It's all good.
I'm not going to give any spoilers. Don't you worry. I'm a vault.
Awesome. And one that you get tied up in weird energy
beams,
rope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. Brandy, where's the best place for people to follow whatever it is you're doing? You've mentioned the Vedic Assembly. You mentioned Outpost
Infinite
13, Infinite Trek.
Yep.
What else you got going on?
I also do some other podcasts, you guys. Boldly Go, which is the Strange New Worlds podcast with my friend Suzanne, who's in the chat. That's also on Holosuite Media, along with the Vedic Assembly. And also, I'm doing What the Future Holds, which is a Star Trek Discovery podcast with my husband, Dave, and our very good friend, Christopher D. Littlefield. And we are having the best time. On all of these podcasts, having the best time. And then I also do a podcast just with my husband called the Dark Corner Podcast. And I do a solo podcast called Head Canon, which I apparently am going to have to change to Hand Canon because now I can't think of it any other way. Ask Bruce for details. And you can find both of those at darkcornerpodcast.com. But Twitter is the place to find all of these things and what's recent. And that's Brandy112. Brandy's with an I and 12 is a number. I didn't already say that. Did I already say that? I'm starting to get confused about what I've said and what I haven't, so I'm just going to stop talking.
You're all good. I don't think you said it, so you're good. Speaking of Christopher Littlefield, he apparently has heard that the Discovery crew all died and they're
They're all
not in
dead.
this season. Yep, they're all
Didn't you?
dead.
It
That's from a
was.
trusted source, right?
It's
Trusted
a
inside
trusted source on the inside. They're going to make some calls
Yeah,
and find out. The trusted source is literally just a bunch of people on 4chan regurgitating the same stuff. None
and
of them have
mostly
sources.
trolling those guys for lols because
Uh-huh.
we have some insight
Ketwalski.
into that. Yeah.
You might hear Ketwalski on some upcoming Holosuite Media podcasts. Just
In-
saying.
Interesting. Well, speaking of Ketwalski and podcasts, you may also hear him on some upcoming Positively Trek episodes too.
Yes.
Positively Trek is the podcast that I do with Bruce Gibson. We do right now 2 episodes every week. One is an episode review of the most recent whatever's aired. It's been Lower Decks. Now it's Discovery for the next 13 weeks. And every 2 weeks, we do a book club episode similar to what we used to do on Literary Treks. So yeah, lots of fun. We have no guest this week. It's just me and Bruce. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a lot of fun. I love that podcast. I hope we get lots of people listening because I think we're doing some really cool stuff. So
You are.
stay tuned to that. Other than that, Twitter at Kertrats, KERTRATS. It's just Star Trek backwards. Really easy to remember. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you to everyone who watches us later on the, the not live, I guess is the right term. I
Hi,
really
Liam.
appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
I know you're watching later, Liam. Love you.
Awesome. Well, until next week, everyone live long and prosper and have a great week, and we'll see you then.